All right, so it's the NFL offseason. We're going to be drilling the same topics over and over again, not to make it not sound so exciting, but we gotta stay fresh here at HQ Spotlight. So we have mock draft after mock draft happening, but what if we have a little fun, make some light of it? Our guy, Cody Benjamin on CBSSports.com, he put together a fake mock draft. So imagine if the veteran market out there, the free agent market, was conducted like a draft. That's what he put together. It's actually pretty funny when you read it. So taking a look at some of his notable picks here, Cody has some good draft picks going on. So Hargrave going first overall to the Chicago Bears. At 16, he has Derek Carr going to the Commanders. Saquon Barkley is going to be a Cowboy. Jimmy G going to the Dolphins with the 26th pick in this fake draft. Imagine if this is reality.
And our guy Patrick Peterson going to the Bucks at 32.
Wonder what he thinks about that. All right, we're going to welcome in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. We're going to talk some real news that's going on here. The LA Rams, they're moving on from linebacker Bobby Wagner, making him a free agent and clearing up some cap space there. So Wagner was just one season into that 5-year, $50 million deal with LA. Where could we see the potential Hall of Fame linebacker land?
Yeah, and Jenny, first of all, we should just go ahead and say it was a 5-year, $50 million deal that ultimately they cut him to create cap space. So what really was it? It was really a 1-year, $10 million deal. At worst, a 2-year, $20 million deal that the Rams were ultimately able to get out of. And I just make that point early on because we should all remember that as we get into free agency, and we're going to hear all these big numbers thrown about and all these years on these contracts when ultimately these are all really 1- or 2-year deals unless we're talking about a mega quarterback deal, and really that's just a 3-year deal. Okay, got all that figured out, great. Bobby Wagner wants to win, and he wants to get paid as well, though he has been getting paid for the better part of the past decade. So where could he end up? Well, he's going to end up on a team that if we were all figuring out who's going to be in the playoffs next season, that's a team that I would pencil in Bobby Wagner for. I think a team at the very top of my list would be the Philadelphia Eagles. And it'd be the Eagles just because we saw what Howie Roseman, the general manager there, did this past year, where he said, I don't care what we have to pay so many of these big names, we're going to get them in here while we have this quarterback on his rookie deal. Now, of course, they are not going to have Jalen Hurts on his rookie deal beginning in 2023, but Howie Roseman will still be aggressive. Another team, let's keep it in the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys, a team with whom Bobby Wagner flirted last year. Now, they got Leighton Vander Esch back last year on a 1-year, very cheap deal. He proved to be worth far more than that after recovering from all of his injuries. So they could bring him back, and we don't need to really worry about Bobby Wagner rejoining Dan Quinn, who's the defensive coordinator there, but always keeping an eye out there. So those two teams always make a ton of sense. The Giants could always use some help on defense, but if Daniel Jones wants as much money as Daniel Jones truly wants, and if the Giants wind up giving it to him, which I highly, highly doubt, they won't have much money to secure the rights to Bobby Wagner.
JJ, I love when you get all the financials out of the way and then you can take a deep breath and say, okay, let's really get into the topic we're discussing here. I want to get all that out first, though. You got to do it, though, because that's what everyone's mind goes to. When you look at the Rams this past season as a whole, it was a letdown. I mean, there's no questions about that. So what type of pressure do you think that organization is facing this offseason?
I think they're facing a moderate amount of pressure. I would say that it is much less pressure today than it was this time last year, right? Coming off of that Super Bowl victory. And hey, are you going to repeat? Well, my goodness, can the bar get any lower for the LA Rams? I don't think that it can, coming off the worst season for any reigning Super Bowl champion in modern NFL history. So you have to believe, and I strongly believe, that the Rams believe that they are going to rebound in 2023. And why is that? Look, it's not about how they didn't care about draft picks. It's not about how they went, quote unquote, all in. I mean, it is to some degree because you don't have the sort of depth when you pay, 4 or 5 guys $20 million per year in average annual salary. But ultimately, it was about injuries. I mean, you look at this team for the first 4 or 5 years under Sean McVay, they were one of the healthiest teams in the NFL. Look at this past season, they had injuries across the board, but also to key positions like, but not limited to, quarterback, #1 wide receiver coming off arguably the greatest wide receiver season of all time. You have injuries to Aaron Donald, arguably one of the best interior defensive linemen in NFL history, and then 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen, it was really musical chairs throughout the entire season. So I believe that the Rams still believe in how they built their team. They may have to make some adjustments. There may have to be some very difficult conversations with someone like Jalen Ramsey, for example, who may want a new deal, may be able to restructure, may want out of LA, may not feel that he's part of their vision, and may not be part of their vision. I think all options are on the table for the guy who's one of the best corners of the past decade. But ultimately, I don't think the Rams feel any more pressure than they felt last year. I would argue they feel less pressure than they felt last year. And they should be able to figure it out because they have the pieces there. They just have to keep them healthy in a way that they were able to for about 5 years and just weren't able to this past season.
Yeah, health is everything. Tommy and I were just talking about the new baseball season starting, going from worst to first to worst. I mean, it's all up in the air right now. And when you think about the NFL offseason, it really doesn't exist when it comes to drama because there's always drama in the NFL. The Athletic coming out with a report on Friday stating that Russell Wilson tried to have Seahawks coach Pete Carroll and general manager John Schneider fired last year. Russell has denied that report, saying he has all the respect for the two of them. Meanwhile, Sean Payton is still trying to build his staff in Denver. Who can Payton bring in to help Russ find success once again?
Yeah, interestingly enough, Sean Payton has brought in a quarterbacks coach, Davis Webb. If you remember that name, it was because he was the backup with the New York Giants. I think that he's younger than Russell Wilson by about 5 or 6 years, but he's a guy that, in talking with folks who have been around Davis Webb, very much believe that he has a lot of potential in the future, and so he's getting his first opportunity here. We know that Sean Payton, one of the best offensive minds in the entire NFL, and I would absolutely put him on the same tier as a Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, and an Andy Reid. And so let's not forget that just because he took a year off or just because he had Drew Brees, this guy is an absolute offensive football savant. So he's going to help Russell Wilson, point blank, period, if Russell wants that sort of help. And I say that because Russell understands, in talking with sources, that he's going to have to change the way he goes about things. Clearly, how he went about things last year produced the worst season that he's ever had. And that probably goes back to Pee Wee football. So you can't do what you did last year. He's not going to have his office or office space or whatever the Broncos want to term it. He's not going to have that in this Sean Payton regime and era. How much is his personal quarterbacks coach and his quote-unquote camp going to be involved? Yeah, we'll see. But obviously, again, Sean Payton saying, yeah, what happened last year is not going to be happening this year. And I think, to some degree, Russell Wilson has to agree. And then lastly, Sean Payton bringing in Joe Lombardi, a guy that he worked with for many years with the New Orleans Saints. He was most previously with the Los Angeles Chargers. He's going to come in some sort of undefined role as well. And so if you believe that Russell Wilson can be turned around, if you are on that side of the fence, you have to be swayed by the fact that Sean Payton is there. If you think that he is fixable, this man should be able to fix Russ to some point. Is he going to return to top 5 quarterback form in the NFL? I think those days are over. But can he be a top 12 quarterback? And will a top 12 quarterback and that sort of associated play, along with the defense that this Denver Broncos team has, would that be enough to get them into the playoffs? Absolutely.
All right, no more high knees for Russell Wilson, I'm guessing, on airplanes. Real quick with this one, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. The future with the Green Bay Packers still remains unclear. He's finished his darkness retreat in Oregon earlier this week. Still no word on what's happening with Rodgers, though. What are you hearing?
Yeah, in talking with a number of folks earlier today, I went and texted around some folks and just said, hey, what are the biggest questions you have going into the combine? It can be about the draft. It can be about free agency. And I would say the majority, or if not the majority, at least the plurality of answers, number one was, what is AR going to do? What's Aaron Rodgers going to do? Because that's when the dominoes are going to fall with the quarterback position. You look at Derek Carr, and if the Jets are whining and dining him, well, the Jets, they would probably like Aaron Rodgers over Derek Carr. And so that's just something to watch for, is that domino is really the key element and the key piece. But until we can really get all this stuff firing, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is letting his thoughts know just yet, as he just collected all of his thoughts in the darkness there for 4 days. But that is the big domino to fall. Is it going to be $60 million against the cap there with Green Bay? Are they going to restructure? Is he going to retire? Does he want to get traded? If so, where to? It will take 3 to tango on this. I won't at all be surprised if Aaron Rodgers is playing elsewhere in 2023.
4 days in darkness with quiet around me actually sounds quite nice. That's Jonathan Jones with the latest in the NFL. JJ, thanks so much for your time.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.